Okay, we are live, but we must let it breathe just for a moment here. Hang tight, gang, while we bring on our Facebook crew, and then we will kick off tonight's conversation with y'all. See a lot of the regulars, a lot of the OGs already in the chat. Got to try this one again. Doesn't want to save to the main Facebook page. Let me try that again. Go live. Hang tight, guys. StreamYard. What are you going to do? All right, we're good. Welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, just 2 days on the doorstep of 3 days, I guess, Christmas, Zack Kelberman. Zack, dude, how are you first and foremost? How has your week gone? And how are you feeling about Thursday? Well, it being Thursday and Sunday's Christmas game.
Yeah, I kind of wish the Broncos didn't play on Christmas. It's nice to have the holiday unfettered, but my week's going well. It's kind of weird to cover a week, Chad, where the Broncos are coming off a win. It seems like, foreign territory for us, but I'm excited to get into some of the latest gossip and reports we've been hearing and transactions the Broncos have made heading into their week 16 matchup against the Rams.
Dude, this 17-game schedule just sucks, man. It's hard. More football is good. Don't get me wrong, dude. Am I freezing in the frame? I think that. Did you see that?
There's like a half a second lag.
That's weird, dude. Hold on a sec. Let's grab this super chat. I'm going to tweak something on the side here. But Zack, grab the super chat from Sam Bam, and then I'll jump back in.
Absolutely, Sam Bam. Appreciate you always joining us tonight with a $10 super. Sam says, hello, Chad and Zack. Just want to wish y'all and Broncos country a Merry Christmas. Hope we get a Broncos win as a Christmas present on Sunday. Also, RIP Ronnie Hillman. So sad to hear of that news. Yeah, I mean, we didn't get a chance to talk about Ronnie Hillman yet. I believe you did, Chad, or another podcast definitely did.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of days, going from hospice at 31 years old, liver cancer and pneumonia. And I don't want to air his, medical history out, but life is so precious, guys. Enjoy every moment. Don't take it for granted. And definitely rest in peace to Ronnie Hillman. And my thoughts and prayers are with his family and friends. And former teammates.
No doubt. Rest in power. He's a guy that if the Denver Broncos don't have Ronnie Hillman on the roster in 2015, you don't get the 1 seed. And so if you don't get the 1 seed, you're not getting to Super Bowl 50, and you're definitely not winning. By the time you got to the stretch run, really, in the playoffs, C.J. Anderson had kind of taken over lead back duties in Gary Kubiak's offense. But, guys, one of the main reasons Brock Osweiler was able to keep this team propped up and go 5-2 as a starter while Peyton was healing up and licking his wounds on that foot injury was Ronnie Hillman was busting off. He ended up that year as the Broncos' leading rusher, not C.J. Anderson. So it's such a bummer. Gone too soon. A freak kind of kidney cancer is what I ultimately learned. And so thoughts and prayers to his family, especially this time of year. What a bummer for it to happen when it's happening. So thoughts and prayers to Ronnie, and a good third-round pick gone too soon.
Yeah, I mean, you see videos and pictures circulating on Twitter, Ronnie Hillman and Demaryius Thomas running side by side on the football field. It's like both of them are gone. How does that even happen? Going back to even Darren Williams back in the day, and then Greg Knapp in the last couple years. The Broncos are losing a lot of legends and good players they've had, and more importantly, better people. So definitely a bummer for sure.
Guys, I tweaked a little something. Zack, I'm going to try something real quick, okay? I'm going to step out just for a second, and I'm going to relaunch my browser and be right back. If you can hold it down and grab Ross,
Absolutely.
I'll be right back, bro.
Absolutely. This is going to be the solo edition of the Mile High Huddle podcast. Ross Hester jumping in, $10 super. Thank you so much, Ross. He says, prayers to Hillman's family. I went to school with him at San Diego State. He was an amazing young man. I'm a Chargers fan, but I've had a Broncos Hillman jersey since 2012. Forever an Aztec and Bronco. Very, very cool, Ross. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for coming in peace, because it's bigger than just the rivalry between the Broncos and the Chargers. Ronnie Hillman, by all accounts, was a great man, a great player. And it's nice to memorialize him in the way that he deserves. So hopefully Chad is back now and can add to this a little bit.
Should be good. I don't know. I might have to tweak it after this stream, but
don't get mad, guys. We're on the left and right. We switched sides.
I know. We're going to trigger some people. That's cool, though, that Ross says he went to school with Ronnie Hillman at San Diego State. Amazing young man. As a Chargers fan, he says, but I've had a Hillman jersey since 12, forever an Aztec. Yeah, that's rad, dude. Known as a very good man off the field and an explosive runner on the field. If we're keeping it about football, I mean, Zach and I aren't going to pretend to know this man personally, and you really feel for his teammates who are grieving his loss. And the sketchy situation, everyone kind of felt it coming. You've seen some things on Twitter. Orlando Franklin earlier this week saying he needs thoughts, he needs prayers for Ronnie. And then today, just seeing that outreach, it's such a bummer at a period in the year where you're supposed to be, feeling merry or happy, for lack of a better term. But you know what? Ronnie Hillman, explosive. When he entered the league, Zach, he was actually the youngest player in the NFL. And gone too soon. So shout out real quick. Hey, we got Albert in the house. What's up, brother? It's great to see you. Legendary figure. He's got lore in the MHH community. We love him. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you. Albert Claus. This guy makes a good Santa Claus. I've seen the evidence of this. Albert Claus in the house.
He fits the profile of St. Nick for sure. Appreciate you, Albert. Good to see you.
Diamond Rattler in the house. Todd Ostendorf in the house. We got our main man, Dylan, helping us out in the chat, reminding everybody to like, subscribe, share. Very fundamental stuff, but we got to remind you from time and time again. Greg Smith in the house. Just wanted to say hi to a few people. We often get so busy with the news cycle that sometimes we're not able to do this type of stuff. Luis in the house. Good to see each and everybody. So, Zach, let's get to some of the content we wanted to talk about tonight. First things first, Russell Wilson is officially back in the lineup. I wrote earlier today about his comments, kind of reviewing the Brett Rippon performance against the Cardinals. We can get to that, but the main key to talk about right now is how are you feeling about Russ's return, and what does that do to change or alter your outlook on the Christmas Day game against the Rams?
It obviously gives the Broncos a better chance of winning than playing Brett Rippon, because if anything, it looked like Russell Wilson was finally maybe finding his groove against Kansas City. He looked like a much different quarterback, a much more confident quarterback. And to their credit, Clint Kubiak's play calling is getting a little better, as we've seen since he took the reins from Nathaniel Hackett. So it gives the Broncos a better chance of winning, but, it doesn't move the needle for me beyond that. For the season, for Nathaniel Hackett's, job security, the Broncos outlook, I think major changes need to be made regardless of the result on Sunday. But individually, on a micro sense, I want to see how Russell Wilson responds to having that week off, and if he can build on what he did against Kansas City.
People are really getting anxious, Zach, that because of that 28-point losing
explosion,
right? Let's not forget here, guys. Broncos lost to the Chiefs, 14th straight game. Anyway, because of that, and then it's followed by a unlikely win, and I only say it unlikely. I know it was at home, and I picked the Broncos to win that game because they've never lost to the Cardinals at home. So I say unlikely, though, Zach, because Russ was out of the lineup. You had Brett Rippon going, and now a lot of people are feeling like, hey, Nathaniel Hackett, he's feeling his oats now. He's rolling. He's going to do enough here in this final quarter of the season to save his job. What say you?
I don't know. I feel like the Broncos, they haven't stopped competing as a team. And I think it was Simmons who someone talked about it recently, how they're all still fighting in the locker room. No one's given up on each other. And they look like they're coming to life. Too little, too late, though, right? Eliminated from the playoffs. The season's a lost cause. Everyone's dug in, I feel like, to their stances on Nathaniel Hackett, whether he should stay, whether he should go. I'm of the opinion that one win over an equally poor Cardinals team doesn't really erase at all the failures of this season and how bad Nathaniel Hackett is as a head coach. Because my one argument to this, chat, to anyone wanting to bring him back, what purpose does he serve? It is the sole barometer to bring him back because the Broncos haven't quit yet. I mean, is that the only reason why we would even entertain the thought? He doesn't call plays anymore. he doesn't manage the game overly well. That's why he had to hire Jerry Rosberg. His timeout management is still kind of questionable. He's still the same novice he was in week 1. It's just kind of covered up because the team is playing incrementally better. But he's not a master motivator. He's not a disciplinarian. He doesn't have GM power like a Bill Belichick, perhaps. There is no case to be made to bring Nathaniel Hackett back. Tell me, what does he bring to the table? What is one quality that would earn him year 2?
I think right now it's more about pride of the organization. George Payton. I'm trying to go through my Denver Broncos Rolodex here, but a one and done head coach it's shameful. Let's be honest, right? It's not something that any GM who is involved in that hire or owner for that matter takes any kind of pride in. And so if they can find a reason somehow, Zach, to save that face and avoid that egg, and then we'll grab Don Juan, and then we'll grab Albert, Lawrence, and David.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shaking my head to what you're saying because you're kind of like repeating the only argument that it could make sense to bring him back. But my counter to that is tell that to Jacksonville. They had a disaster in Urban Meyer. They hired a more steady hand in Doug Peterson, who you were high on, Shed. You wanted the Broncos to take a look at. I wasn't, and I'll eat some crow on that because he has made chicken salad all year with Trevor Lawrence. And I believe if they win out, they can win their division. They can win the AFC South. I mean, that's a big turnaround, so it can be done. You just have to find the right head coach that can manage the entire team and preferably make your quarterback better. I don't see Hackett doing either of those things overly well.
Don Juan, thank you for your patience, my friend. And I agree with you, by the way. I'm just throwing these steelman arguments, these devil's advocates out there because this is the kind of rationale and logic that we've been hearing lately. Don Juan, he says, what's up, fellas? Do you think any other Broncos deserved to be in the Pro Bowl this year besides Patrick Surtain II, R.I.P. Hillman? Thank you, Don. We were going to get to this as a topic tonight, so appreciate you nudging us along via Super Chat. Zach, he becomes, you guys go read the article at milehighhuddle.com of Patrick Surtain being selected to the Pro Bowl and the different historical feats associated with that. Obviously, very deserving. Justin Simmons, for what it's worth, named a first alternate. So if anyone ahead of him on the AFC roster, as far as the safeties are concerned, they get hurt or they bow out because they're going to the Super Bowl or whatever. Anyway, I don't want to get lost in that right now, but that's the deal. Was anyone snubbed?
I mean, except for Simmons, who has a case? Josie Jewell. I would have to see the list of the players that all made it. It kind of off topic a little bit, but did it catch you by surprise, Chad, that the rosters seemingly came out of nowhere? I wasn't really prepared for the Pro Bowl to be announced, but I don't see anyone on the roster that's healthy that has a case to be considered a snub. Maybe Simmons, but I know he's had the interception spree lately. He's not. Who are the safeties that went instead of him, Chad?
Let me just pull it up. Keep talking, and I'll pull it up.
If you watch his games week by week, you realize he's not a top 3 safety. I don't think he's a top 5. He's like a top 8 safety, my opinion. So
okay, you ready?
Good, but not great. Yeah.
Derwin James. Jesus, just jumped on me. Derwin James. So free safety, it's Minka Fitzpatrick, Pittsburgh Steelers, Derwin James of the Chargers, and then Jordan Poyer of the Buffalo Bills. That's the 3 AFC safeties.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hackett, to his credit, said it best today as well. It wasn't breaking news analysis, but he said the players that are voted to the Pro Bowl, more likely than not, are players that come from winning teams.
Exactly.
And the Broncos aren't a winning team. So I think Simmons maybe could have a case, but other than that, I mean, who else really is snubbed?
There's nobody on offense. Nobody. Defensively, you got Draymond Jones might have had a little bit of an argument if he doesn't get hurt and maybe he doesn't kind of fade down the stretch like he did, Zach, before he got hurt. If Bradley Chubb was still on this roster, maybe he's in the conversation. But and Josie Jewell and even Alex Singleton, for that matter, if they're producing at the level they've been producing this season on a winning ball club, it's Pro Bowl caliber play. Is it Pro Bowl worthy? We could split hairs on that, but I honestly don't see anyone else on this roster besides Pat. I mean, this time, usually I'll complain, but this time I think they got it right, honestly. Surtain, no-brainer. All right, shutdown corner in the league right now, number one. And Simmons just on the peripheral. If he wouldn't have started off hurt and then really been ineffectual for the second quarter of the season when he did return, he's probably easily making the Pro Bowl. But you know what? He wasn't making those plays. The plays we've been seeing him make the last couple of weeks, if he'd been doing that, or even a version of that, Zach, weeks when he returned, weeks 6 through 10, let's say, he's in the Pro Bowl.
Just curious, who are the off-ball guys that made it? You have it in front of you still?
Yeah, I got it. On the AFC side, it's Roquan Smith and CJ Mosley.
I think they're both more deserving than, just to call a spade here. I know Josie's playing good football, so is Singleton, but they're mostly just compiling tackles. I know Josie had the interception game a couple weeks ago, but they're just run stuffers and tackling compilers. So I don't think they got snubbed as well. I am happy for PS2 though, because he was snubbed last year, and I'm happy he got the full, starting nomination in the Pro Bowl. The more important thing though is All Pro, and that should be next for Patrick Surtain. He's on the way, Chad. I mean, it's one step after the other. He already has one Pro Bowl. His father, a highly regarded, maybe even legendary former Dolphins cornerback, Pat Surtain, only had 3 Pro Bowls in his entire career. So you see the trajectory that PS2 is on. It could end in Canton with his bust.
Yeah. He needs one more signature performance, I think, in these final 3 games to solidify first team All-Pro. And I still, even if he doesn't have one of those signature performances, I still think he's done enough to earn some kind of All-Pro recognition. But he needs one more just to remind, because for All-Pro, we're talking about the Associated Press. Albert Knoppers, bro, he says, what do you think of the idea of Jerry Jeudy playing from the X position and Sutton from the slot? Merry Christmas, everyone. I don't really like Sutton from the slot, but what I do like is, to use the same verbiage here, Zach, calling a spade. Jerry is thriving at the X. Sutton hasn't really this season. Traditionally, he has. Last year, not so good coming off, and his return from the knee. This year, he's been, I know he's got leading stats and everything as far as the team's concerned, but when's the last time you saw Courtland Sutton make a play, that you can actually remember him making, that made a difference in the game? So keep Jerry Jeudy at the X, and you just swap him. You put Courtland Sutton over on the Z. You can still move guys around, let them play some slot, inside, outside, keep the defense guessing, but keep what's working as the order of the day, and that's Jerry Jeudy at the X.
It's really pathetic that I have to rack my brain to try to figure out an answer to the question you just posed. When's the last time Courtland Sutton made a game-saving play, a game-clinching play, a game-winning play? It's been at least a couple years. He really never blossomed back into that pre-injury Courtland Sutton, but we talked about this a few podcasts ago. It's more of the mental aspect that scares me about Courtland than the physical, because after he got paid, it seems like he took his foot off the gas a little bit. It's not fighting for the balls anymore. It's not 80-20. It's truly 50-50 when you're throwing to Courtland Sutton. And I'm right there with you. Jerry Jeudy is thriving despite the ineptitude on offense, the injuries, the quarterbacking. He's having a breakout season. I would not fix what's not broken right now. Leave him. And it's a matchup-based question anyway to answer. It's whoever has the weaker cornerbacks that you can match up Jeudy on and match up Sutton on. That's where the Broncos should go. But on a whole, leave Jeudy where he is because he's killing it.
David, by the way, Merry Christmas to you, my friend. Appreciate you very, very much throwing down a super chat. Give our best to your family as well. Zach, and we'll grab James here in just a second, but it's kind of conspicuous. Courtland Sutton last year, he played in 16 of 17 games, okay? Started, I should say, 16 of 17 games. 58 receptions, 776 yards, 2 touchdowns. George Payton paid him, and it wasn't the type of, if he would have hit free agency, he probably could have gotten more than what he accepted with the Denver Broncos at the time. But since then, there is a correlation, Zach. We don't believe in coincidence, right? So you either have to charge Sutton's relative lack of impact this season to the complacency of a fat, full bank account, or part and parcel of just a dilapidated, underperforming offense. But when your quarterback is Russell Wilson, and I get it, Zach, he's had his own struggles, and that trickles down, especially when it's the quarterback. But Courtland Sutton's got 1 touchdown this year. 1. A singular individual touchdown. That's it. So I'm more inclined, because look at Jerry Jeudy, not a great offense. He's been blasting lately. I'm more inclined to subscribe anyway, Zach, to your theory of the got paid complacency. And that's a bummer, dude.
It's ironic that Cortland Sutton's having a Jeudy-like season after Jeudy went touchdownless last year. I don't know, though, that I can truly blame the quarterback. I mean, even as poor as Russell Wilson has been, he's still an upgrade on some of the dreck they've dragged out in recent years, namely Joe Flacco. I could throw in Case Keenum in there, Brock Osweiler, yada, 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 Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, so on and so forth. I feel like if you had Tim Patrick out there, we wouldn't be having this conversation about tenacity, about passion, about fighting for the football. And if you look at Tim Patrick's stats, he produced every year, no matter the circumstance, no matter the OC, no matter the QB, he was always making plays. It's a matter of want to and a matter of fight. And I don't know that Cortland Sutton has that anymore, unfortunately.
We got to wonder now. James, thank you for the super chat, Big Dog. He says, evening Broncos fam. With all the bad things going on, just want to send positive vibes to everyone. Yeah, I mean, with the passing of Ronnie Hillman, we feel you. And that's especially what is on Miguel's mind here, who threw down some stars. Thank you, Big Dog. He says, RIP to 23. I was so looking forward to seeing Tom Compton. This is the disappearing act, offensive guard / tackle. George Payton signed to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. He finally debuted. He says, playing this year, and he's been by far George Payton's worst signing. Boo that. Well, what's worse, him or Billy Turner, if we're talking worst signings? I mean, it's up for debate. I guess you squoze Zach a little bit more blood out of that turnip if we're talking about Billy Turner. But Tom Compton debuted as a Bronco last week. Zach, he played 30 snaps.
Yeah, that was it.
And, I don't know. It was a better rushing performance by the offense in the second half, and really better. They improved in all aspects in the second half as far as an offensive line is concerned. Are you at all optimistic that maybe Tom Compton has something to do with that?
I don't know. I would really have to focus on him and watching the game film back. All I did notice, though, is J.J. Watt making Brett Rippon's life a living hell, and the Broncos and pass pro have not been pretty this year. Tom Compton was an interesting signing, but this is the problem that George Payton has, that John Elway has, especially with linemen. When you sign injured, you get injured. And they had that with Billy Turner. You had that with Tom Compton. You've had that with a lot of players in years past. All he lasted was 30 snaps on the field. And then his back flared up again. Now he's out for the season. It was a bad signing, but I understand why the Broncos made it. He's familiar with Butch Berry. He can play guard. He can play tackle. But this is another indicator, another red flashing warning sign in George Payton's face. Invest high-quality capital into high-quality linemen. You can't skimp out any longer.
Greg, appreciate you, bro. We'll get a question from Greg here. He says, will PS2 have more Pro Bowl selections than his dad, which I believe is 3? I believe so, yeah. What say you, Zach?
Unless, and I'm knocking wood when I say this, unless Patrick Surtain suffers some sort of career-altering injury, why wouldn't he? Look at the trajectory he's already on. I mean, he's the best cornerback, I feel like, I'm sure you feel like as well, Chad, in the NFL already in his second season. You can argue he was top 5 as a rookie. I mean, his first play in the preseason was a pick 6 against the Vikings, right after he was drafted, pretty much a few months after that. So yeah, I think he's going to have more than 3, but to me, all pros count more than Pro Bowls, and hopefully PS2 picks up number 1 this year as well.
How do you feel about there not actually being a game? It's the Pro Bowl games, these like contests or whatever that they're going to do. The game itself, at least this year, it's gone, which there is one downside to that, Zach, and that is that guys like Justin Simmons, who was named a first alternate, all right, he's not really got a chance to make the Pro Bowl, right? Because no one's going to necessarily bow out of a vacation unless they're in the Super Bowl. That's the only exception, unless they're maybe in the Super Bowl. But I haven't educated myself enough, I'm ashamed to tell you, it's the Pro Bowl, so cut me some slack, on whether or not these guys have to show up in order to keep the Pro Bowl selection. You know what I mean? Like, what are these games? What is it you're doing, et cetera, et cetera? And the unfortunate aspect of that is it's going to be, and maybe this is a good thing because it makes the Pro Bowl more meaningful, like the All Pro, where you don't have these first, second, and third hand alternates who end up making the Pro Bowl and get to put that on their resume or shows up on Wikipedia. They get to use that when they're trying to bargain for a new contract or whatever. But it does limit that. So there's pros, there's cons on that side of the argument.
I mean, back in the day when I was like younger, the Pro Bowl used to be lit. Remember the skills competitions and the passing competitions with Peyton Manning and Drew Brees back in the day? Like in that heyday, the Pro Bowl was fun. It was something that you actually watched. But over the years, it became so watered down. They had the celebrities drafting the teams, and they try like flag football, and then it's basically two-hand touch. No one was watching the Pro Bowl anymore, and a lot of people are like me that subscribe to the theory that all pros count a lot more than Pro Bowls do. So I don't really care that they're not having any sort of formal event for it. Just name the names like they did and move on.
Yeah, it's I don't know. That I remember a few years back, Aaron Rodgers being like pissed off because guys weren't even going half speed. Like it was a travesty. It wasn't a football game. Guys were just running out of bounds. It was just a joke. So better to just do away with it than dilute the NFL product. And even if that means less guys each year get to put a Pro Bowl on their Wikipedia or on their NFL resume, so be it. I'm not shedding any tears. Zach, I can't even remember that Aaron Rodgers game that I'm referencing, and I want to say that was like 2016, 2017. That's probably the last one I watched.
Yeah, I used to look forward to it, like I said, but I haven't. It's like Madden in recent seasons. I haven't paid attention to it because it got so watered down. It became such a joke and parody of itself. And Luis is right on the money here. It seems like the Pro Bowl went downhill after it left Hawaii. Yeah, when they moved it from Hawaii to Orlando, it took a lot of the luster out of it. It's like Heinz Field being renamed Acrisure Stadium, whatever it's called. You just want to have that familiarity with something because tradition does matter.
Yes, indeed. Luis, dude, paying attention. Yeah, that's right, dude. My band. I got some cool news if you're following on Twitter. If we are connected on Facebook, my band. You guys remember I disappeared for 2 weeks during the summer. I took a little vacation. And the way I explained it to everybody, Zach knew what was going on, but what y'all knew was, I just kind of got together with some of my old friends and, we recorded some music. It was no big deal. But it was a little bit more serious than that. And my band called Bridge the Gap, we signed a record deal. And so we're going to have a big old record and video and cool stuff coming out at the end of this month. And so we'll keep y'all in the loop for those that are interested. Obviously has nothing to do with the Denver Broncos, and it's like in a whole different stratosphere. But if you're interested when the time comes, we'll tell you how to find that stuff. For now, you can search Bridge the Gap. There's nothing out there for music. You can't really wet your beak on it. Wait till the first single drops, and I'll keep you in the loop. But thanks, Luis. Okay, Zach. Lawrence had a good topic here I wanted to get to. Any injuries from this year that you look to have a big impact next year that you might want to look at getting someone else in that position for injury concerns? You're better at the syntax, letter of the law, interpretation, grammar than I am, but I think what he's saying is guys that have been hurt this year that have had a big impact, their absence. Is there someone else you would maybe want to get to replace him?
I mean, first player that comes to mind that's been, I hope I'm interpreting the question correctly. The first player that's injured that comes to mind that I would want to replace would be Ronald Darby, but they already have his replacement in Damari Mathis, so I wouldn't go out of house for him. Right tackle, whoever's lining up there has been injured, whether it's, Cam Fleming or whether it's Billy Turner. I'm definitely sinking a lot of capital, free agent dollars and draft picks into fixing the O-line. Two that come to my mind, Chad. How about you?
Yeah, especially Ronald Darby. And, when he's on the field and available for you, he can be a difference maker. But the cost, that deal that he got from George Payton, he just hasn't lived up to it. And if Damari Mathis wasn't balling out, look, I expected him to be a starting caliber guy as a rookie eventually. I felt like by about right now, he'd become a starter. He'd show something at the end of his rookie year. And then going into his second year, we'd be talking about some upside in Damari Mathis, but he has outkicked that coverage in a big, bad way. Like they've got their starting cornerback duo figured out. And where you've got him, Mathis, Zach, on a cost-controlled contract for 3 more seasons after this, why are you going to spend $10 million a year on can't count on him, Ronald Darby? So miss me on him. Garrett Bolles, he's the other or one of the other big names. You're praying to God he comes back to a modicum level of what he was before he got hurt, because left tackle has been brutal in his absence. I don't necessarily think, Zach, you go out and find someone to replace Bolles because you're going to keep him, but you just generally have to upgrade your tackle depth. And that's something that we have hammered on from the time George Paton came to the Mile High City. That's one thing Zach and I we haven't changed our tune on, really. The 3 things that kind of mar George Paton's first 2 years as a GM in Denver, it still kind of irks me, the Philip Lindsay thing, all right, and just how that all went down. The decision to basically ignore offensive tackle and offensive line to a great extent, at least early in the draft. And then, of course, the big swing and a miss on Nathaniel Hackett. We since learned, I was attributing paying Russell Wilson when he did to George Paton, but we've since learned through other reporting that was the owner saying, no, get that done. George Paton's advice was, now let's wait a little bit. So those are the 3 things that.
I mean, we've been beating that drum about tackles since John Elway's general managership, Chad. I mean, going back to like 2017, 2018, they've neglected that for far too long. To answer the question, though, I went and looked at the current Broncos IR list, which reads like a freaking novel. I forgot, because this season's been so bad, that Draymond's on IR, and we got a comment about Draymond Jones. I don't know. I'm still torn on him, Chad. I don't know what to do, really. Do you apply the franchise tag and pay him, what is it, $20 million next year? Do you hand him a multi-year contract? Has he really earned that? Has he been the Aaron Donald of this defense? I do not know. I've always been a Draymond Jones backer, but I'd bring him back for the sole reason that you can't replace everyone this coming offseason. You can't overhaul the entire team. And if you have a starting caliber defensive end, I mean, who can step up for him in-house? No one. No one's ready for that role. They already have one guy starting in Deshaun Williams, Chad, who should not be starting. So I would lock down Draymond for the simple fact that you can't replace every position, and you have a really, really good player there that you hope with continued good coaching can become that great player that we're all envisioning.
It sucks for the player to end a contract year on injured reserve, but if you're interested in bringing him back to Denver, it plays into the team's hands because, I don't think his injury it's a hip. I'm not sure exactly the reporting has been there for us to know the full extent of what was going on there. I know he saw some specialists in the days, Zach, leading up to the Broncos just pulling the plug on his season and putting him on IR. But assuming that it's not, I mean, we know it's not big-time ACL. It's not a ligament in the knee. It's not a shoulder. It's a hip, and there's implications associated with that. But I think the nature of that particular injury, can be good to go easily by the start of next season, but because he's going to be injured by the time and recovering from, who knows, maybe surgery, if not just recovering from an injury, going on the free agent tour and going out there and plying your wares and being the full, just being yourself as Draymond Jones, he's not going to be able to do that. And that plays into the Broncos' hands where they're probably going to be able to bring him back. They'll have to pay him, but on the relative cheap, I think, Zach, compared to what he was cruising for if he doesn't get hurt. I know he lost some wind. He lost some momentum second half of the season on, but as the guy that's going to end up finishing this season as the team's leading sacker, he was fixing to get paid, whether from Denver or someone else. I definitely wouldn't franchise tag him now, all right? I've seen enough there to say he's not worth that top-of-the-line money. Great pass rusher. Flip a coin on a given running play if he's going to be good and disciplined and hold it down there. So I don't know. I think it plays into to the team's hands, but it's kind of a bummer for Draymond.
You're right about it's not a broken leg or it's not a torn ACL, whatever, but hip injuries could be concerning. Caden Stearns has had a hip all year, and he's going to miss the entire season with that hip. And they can be very degenerative and debilitating for players. So hopefully he's not dealing with that. Another guy that's kind of lower on the totem pole, but by the letter of the question, I'm going to answer anyway. Third down running back, Mike Boone's on IR right now. I was, as you were, a big Boone proponent. He hasn't lived up to the contract that he got. So I'm looking for the Broncos. You're going to bring back Pookie. Hopefully he can come back to what he was after his own knee injury. I would bring back Latavius Murray or Marlon Mack or Chase Edmonds, and I would draft a running back in the later rounds. That's what I would do with the running back room.
Well said. Trevor wants to know, does Garrett Bolles count as one of the top 8 left tackles? I think he's in that conversation healthy, and this is the only year that he's not been healthy. So, yeah, I think he's in that conversation. What say you, Zach?
Top 8 in terms of money or in terms of performance?
I interpreted it as performance. If it's money, I can look that up.
I think I don't know about performance. He's still, from what we saw this year, and it might be a Butch Berry thing because no lineman got better under Butch Berry going from Mike Munchak. And Trevor does say performance. So I think he's right outside of that. I feel like he's top 12, maybe when he's consistent. That's his thing, is being consistent. Maybe when he is that, though, he's top 10. Top 8, I don't know. I still am not 100% in on Garrett Bolles. I was a big critic of his first couple of years when he was Garrett Holds and drawing 15-yard penalties left and right. When he settles down, when you get good Garrett Bolles, he could be top 8. But bad Garrett Bolles could be the bottom, 28.
That's fair. Greg wants to know, is Bolles going to bounce back from his injury? I haven't seen any prognosis. Yeah, it's a broken leg, so it's just heal. The bones just need to heal. He'll be good to go.
And he's tough as hell too.
He's probably good right now, you know, but why bring him back when, the season's over and you might as well play for 2023 in some of these more serious injuries. But by the time you get to the season and, by the time you get to even OTAs and training camp, he's going to be good to go. Brandon says on Draymond, tag him and then trade him. But that's going to be, I guess you could do that, but what say you to that as a tactic?
I don't know. Again, it's tempting because you want the capital and you want to save the money on a Draymond Jones contract, but you're still looking to replace him. And if you want to use the draft pick you'd be getting for him to replace Draymond Jones, you're trading a known quantity, however disappointing as a former third-round pick, for an unknown quantity. We don't know if that next defensive end who they draft could be as good as Draymond Jones. And I don't think, Chad, we've seen the ceiling of Draymond. I don't think we've seen how good he can really be. I think he's still ascending. He might need some more help in the front seven. So I don't know that it would be an attractive option for the Broncos or for another team. It seems like you either let him walk or you hand him a multi-year contract.
That's why, I think Draymond Jones, you bring him back on the kind of deal relative to his position, all right, that you did with Jeudy Jewell. Broncos, on a season that was ruined by that pec tear last year, right? He was in a contract year. They ended up letting him test the market and then re-signed him 2 years. What was it, Zach? $6 or $8 million a year? Something like that off the top of my head. That was for an inside linebacker. They're not as valuable as a true alpha dog defensive tackle, 4-tech type guy, 5-tech guy. Draymond Jones, he's probably, you could probably do something similar as far as the term. Bring him back, because you're right. I think he is a player that hasn't quite reached that full measure of his potential. So you bring him back 2 years and you throw $8 or $9 or $10 million per year at him and you guarantee the first year or whatever. Something to that effect where you're not buying him long-term. You're in a certain sense renting him for 2 more years, but betting on him completing that ascension and getting to where he can be without totally like saddling the team with a ridiculous $20-25 million per year type of salary.
He's going to be 26 in January. He's still entering the prime of his career. So what I would do, maybe like you were talking about, is, hey, 2 years, $32 million for Draymond Jones. Let's call it $28 million fully guaranteed and go from there. If you're better at the end of year 2 or before year 2 ends, we'll look to extend you. But if you're not, you can walk away at 28, 29 years old, whatever, and look for another suitor.
Shout out to Big Earn. What's up, buddy? Michael Ronquillo as well. Merry Christmas to you, my friend. So let's talk a little bit, Zach. We're at 40 minutes. We don't need to grind all the way through to an hour tonight unless things really get hopping. But how are you viewing this Broncos Rams game on Christmas? Do you see it as a win? Do you see it as another loss? How are you feeling about this with Russ versus Baker now as the marquee matchup?
Well, I can't believe, first of all, I'm watching a Jaguars-Jets game right now that has playoff implications, and the Christmas Day matchup between the Rams and the Broncos pit two teams that are already eliminated from contention against each other. So what a turn this season has taken for a lot of teams in the NFL, the Broncos especially. I feel like it's a lump of coal, though, to get on Christmas Day regardless, Chad, because a win, and it's, to me, more false hope in Nathaniel Hackett, in what this team is, and it would maybe delay the necessary changes that have to be made. But another loss, no one likes to lose, and it would just cast a darker light over the franchise, especially because it's a holiday and another nationally televised game for this year's Broncos outfit.
Well, pardon me, for the sake of being thorough, all right, and consistent, let's just take a quick peek. We don't need to let our hair down on this because these are 2 4-10 teams. But let's take a quick look at, I gotta drop it down 1%. 1 second. Let me drop it.
We just skip the offense, go straight to defense.
200%. There we go. Okay. So quick head to head, ugly offense. I mean, look at these freaking Rams, dude. This is Sean McVay. And guess what? Oh, is it not shared? Sorry. I forgot Scott changed that little last thing. Okay. Look at this offense. And guys, I got to remind you, Matthew Stafford, Zach, that injury was week 13, right? That he was put on injured reserve. It was sketchy injury. But either way, look at this. Worst net yards per game offense. Only one team worse than the Rams as a scoring offense, and that's your Denver Broncos right now. But how surprised are you by this? I know they've had a lot of injuries, and it's a big kind of Super Bowl hangover type of year, but how much does this surprise you, what we know about Sean McVay?
From what I've gleaned about the Rams this year, even back in week 1, there was significant worry over their offensive line. Sound familiar? Because it should. And it proves that no matter the coach, no matter the quarterback, you need a competent line to succeed. But they've had some injuries. Stafford's out, Kupp's out, Donald missed some time as well. And I believe he's still questionable or limited with an ankle. But it's just so surprising. I'm used to seeing 32nd, 31st, 30th in red, and assuming it's the Broncos. To see another team is equally bad, if not worse, is pretty jarring, Chad.
That it is. Look at this. Bradley Chubb hasn't been on this roster since basically Halloween, and he's still second on the team, Zach, in sacks, for what it's worth. Let's just move past the offense because – they've improved. Give them some credit. They pulled themselves up by the bootstraps from being dead last in the red zone offensively, Zach, and they're now still bottom third, but like they're rising. They continue to improve efficiency-wise when drives get to the 20-yard line and beyond. But third down is still just atrocious, all right? It's absolute garbage. Protecting the queue, absolute garbage.
What I just say, too, I mean, they don't have an offensive line this year, and the Broncos don't, and they've both allowed 51 sacks. Yeah. You have to protect the quarterback.
Look at that. Yeah, that's right. Defensively, though, the Broncos still have a lot of green, baby. If it's green, that signifies, as you know, but for those who are new, that signifies a top 10 ranking in the NFL. Black is middle of the road. Red, bottom 10. All right, so the Broncos, 5th yards per game defense, 3rd scoring defense, relinquishing 18.1 points per game. They are the 5th passing defense, middle of the road, barely rushing defense. Interceptions, look at this now, Zach. 2nd most interceptions in the NFL. And that happened relatively quickly. They went from kind of being one of the middle of the pack to bottom 3rd teams in interceptions to now number tied for 2nd most in the NFL. Credit to Ejiro Evero,
who was a former secondary coach with the Rams and I think the defensive passing game coordinator as well. So bang up job by Evero. Can't say enough about him and all the injuries he's dealt with this year to see so much green and also an offense that puts his unit on the field every 5 minutes. What's most impressive though, the 2 stats at the bottom there, red zone percentage, third down percentage. The Broncos are first and second, respectively, in those categories. Again, can't say enough about Ejiro Evero.
Absolutely. Still great in the red zone. No one better than the Broncos at keeping opponents from scoring touchdowns once they've penetrated the 20-yard line. And still second best on third down. So much to hang your hat on and be proud of defensively with these Broncos. And they've suffered a lot of injuries and depletions, including the Bradley Chubb trade. So credit to Ejiro Evero. There's a reason why he is viewed with the opinion and regard that he is. But look at these Rams real quick, and then we'll get off of this, okay? Go back to the chat. They can stop the run, Zach, and they're relatively good in the red zone as well. Look at this. First red zone, Broncos. Second in the red zone, Rams. How does that shake out when it comes time for – oh, and look at this. Last thing. Broncos most penalized team. Rams, one spot away from being the least penalized team.
Yeah, I mean, that's a Super Bowl champion with Sean McVay at the helm versus the Broncos with Nathaniel Hackett. Penalties are for sure a coaching lapse. But I think we talked about Evero coming from the Rams, and so did Dwayne Stukes as well, special teams coordinator. I think that familiarity can help take down the Rams on Sunday.
FA in the house, throwing down with effing authority on Merry Christmas. Love you, big dog. Appreciate you. Seriously, thank you, buddy. He says, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Kwanzaa. That's all, LOL. Dude, thank you for dropping in and brightening our day, helping us keep the lights on here at MHH with a very, very generous top rope super chat. FA, any topics you want us to get to, we got a little bit more time left. Get them in the chat, and we will be sure to grab them.
I mean, we're going to look up soon, Chad, literally and figuratively, and see FA's name on Mount Rushmore and see his face up there as well. So definitely appreciate you. Hope you're having a fantastic holiday.
Yeah, dude. Can't wait to see how this game plays out on Christmas. I mean, I guess the question now is, do you view this? I'm asking the chat. I'm asking those of you with us right now live. Do you view this as you would get an extra Christmas present if the Denver Broncos won on Christmas Day? Or do you view it as either way, it's a lump of coal? We want to know. How do you feel about that, Zach?
I feel like there's 3 more games left, and then we can call it a season. It's been such a depressing letdown of a year. And I feel like just because the Broncos only lost by 6 and they beat a Cardinals team, a lot of people forgot how frustrating, depressing, bleak, and comedic it was at times. So it's I don't really care what happens on Sunday. I always want a victory for Broncos country, the best fans on earth. But again, if they got that victory over a deplorable Rams team, it could give Nathaniel Hackett more job security. And if you want him gone, that would be a lump of coal.
If he really earned another swing at the plate by virtue of him figuring things out, because look, we always knew as a first-time head coach, there were going to be some growing pains. There was going to be a trial and error learning process. What we assumed going into this season is that the equalizer, all right, the leveling of that playing field that would help Hackett microwave and accelerate that learning curve so that the team doesn't feel it quite so bad, would be the presence of, Zach, a 9-time Pro Bowler in his 11th season. Unfortunately, not only did that not happen, but it has appeared that he has presided over and in large part should be held responsible for the regression of that same 9-time Pro Bowl quarterback playing in his 11th season. And so with that being the case, seeing how just the lack of fit between Russ and Hackett, that's what matters most to me. I know, Zach, look, it's egg on the face of the organization. It's ugly to have to fire a head coach that you hired just 1 year later. But we know, dude, he is not the right fit for Russell Wilson. We've seen 3 games in which, maybe 4 if you want to count the Seattle game, in which Russell looked like anything close to the Russell Wilson we all knew going into this season. I'm talking Seattle game, first Raiders game, the Jacksonville game, and that Chiefs loss, okay? 4 games where he showed like, okay, that's Russell Wilson. We recognize that. I don't think Nathaniel Hackett has what it takes to take that version of Russ and make that everyday Russ. I just think the longer he's around, the more you risk that. These other games, Russ, right? These other, I forget now, was he missed 2 games? So the other 10 games or whatever that he has been in that have sucked, you risk that being the permanent lay of the land relative to Russell Wilson, who you just invested $250 million into, all right, if you keep Nathaniel Hackett around. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's my thing. You made a couple really good points there, Chad. I've seen glimpses of Russ where I've said to myself, you know what, that looks like a competent quarterback. That looks like a starting quarterback at the NFL level. I have not had a second of that thought about Nathaniel Hackett. I have not thought to myself at any point this regular season and said, this is the guy that can be a 10-year coach. This is a guy that deserves to be a head coach at the NFL level. And the other point that you made that I really want to further that's important, and tell me if this makes sense. I don't care about the results so much. I feel like because the rest of the season is pure evaluation for next year and beyond, it's important to figure out what Russell Wilson can do and what he can't do and build on what he can do and try to rally around that.
Agreed. Plum Bob jumping in. Thank you, bud. $5 super chat saying PS2 Pro Bowl, let's go. Yeah, big props to the kid. Big props to him. I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit worried, Zach, that the Broncos overall, it's not just overall lack of team success, but literally becoming a laughingstock for a good stretch of this season, that was going to take some of the bloom off the PS2 rose relative to the postseason accolades. So I was very relieved to see him get that because he's very deserving.
The people who watch the game, you don't need stats or analytics. You need 2 eyes and a brain to see how good PS2 is. So I'm glad he wasn't snubbed like he was last year.
FA throwing down again. Dude, thank you, big dog. FA, we really appreciate you, bro. He says, also, RIP to Ronnie Hillman. So sad. I had the pleasure of meeting him, he says. This is the second super chat that we've gotten tonight that said they met him in San Diego in 2013. Such a humble man. Yeah, he always came off that way, right? Bright smile. Hell of a football player, fast, great vision. He kind of, his rookie year, he was okay. And then in between that and Gary Kubiak coming to town, he kind of floundered a little bit. He wasn't really being used right. And when you had, the last vestiges of the No Sean Moreno era, you used No Sean Moreno. But that final season that he was in Denver, the final full season, because he was in training camp the next year and then they cut him. He was a key component to the Broncos winning the 1 seed and then having home field advantage and getting to the Super Bowl. So such a tragedy. It's definitely rest in peace, and thoughts and prayers up to his family, because just being taken like that, barely on the wrong side of 30, it just should not happen.
Yeah, that's my thing about it as well. I mean, 31 years old, all he accomplished as a collegiate, all he accomplished in the NFL, Super Bowl champion, team leader, great guy off the field, great man off the field by all accounts, only 31 years old. It's I wish I can curse right now because I want to say F cancer so bad, but definitely my thoughts and prayers are with Ronnie Hillman's family, his friends, and his former teammates.
That's right. Wero, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Thank you for the super chat, big dog. He says, Emmanuel Sanders said he wants to see Russ in a new offense. He also used to think players make the coach, but now believes the coach makes the players. I haven't heard that from Emmanuel Sanders. I don't know exactly. I'll take your word for it, Wero. I trust you, big dog. But I want to see Russ in a new offense too. This offense, obviously, not cut out to play to Russell Wilson's strengths. And especially whatever the coaching emphasis has been this season, it's just like total lack of connection, total lack of communication. I mean, he's walked the line, Zach, between looking like a washed, scared, busted down veteran that lost his juice and a rookie that's like also just scared to death, doesn't know what he's doing. Why are you seeing that from a 9-time Pro Bowler in his 11th year? Zach, you have a 3-word phrase that I think applies perfectly here.
Coaching, baby. And with Emmanuel Sanders, it's like another country heard from. It's kind of random that Sanders would be commenting on the Broncos quarterback situation. Nothing against you, Wedo, about bringing it up, but it's kind of obvious as well. We all want to see Russell Wilson with a new coach in a new scheme, and all it takes is that one guy to unlock his abilities because they are still there. We've seen the flashes. We've seen the promise. We have seen none of that, though, out of Nathaniel Hackett as a head coach.
Michael says, let's win the Christmas game for number 88 for DT. A Christmas baby indeed he was. That's another reason to hope for success on Christmas Day. Most definitely. Don Juan, brother, thank you. Number 2 tonight, he says, any reason we haven't picked up Jerry Jeudy's 5th year? That usually doesn't happen, bro, till the offseason. The deadline decides everything in the NFL. Teams typically, with few exceptions, they don't act on things until they actually have no choice but to make a decision. And deadlines govern that. The deadline for a 5th-year option, all right, is you have to decide it. What is it, Zach? I don't remember the exact date in the offseason, but it's the offseason of their 4th year. Before the new league year begins, I want to say. It might even be as late as the draft. I'm getting confused on that right now. But
I thought it was like May.
I want to say May as well. So they don't have to decide on that, Don, until then. And so they won't. All right. But the question now is, do you pick that up? Do you pick up Jerry Jeudy's 5th-year option? Because if you would ask me that 6 weeks ago, my answer probably would have been different than what it is today.
Well, here's the great thing. We don't have to answer it right now, nor do the Broncos. They don't have to decide on Jerry Jeudy. He's still cost-controlled on his rookie contract. So bring him back, obviously, I wouldn't trade him. A lot of people are talking about trading Jerry Jeudy. No, you hang on to him. You develop him into your wide receiver 1 and see how he looks next year, hopefully under a new offensive coordinator, different scheme, with better quarterback play from Russell Wilson.
Agreed. Where I was saying Emmanuel Sanders was on the Colin Cowherd show saying that stuff. So gotcha. We'll check it out when we get some time on him saying that reversing course, saying that he used to think players make the coach, but now he believes the coach makes the players. FA with one last big boy, big baller, Mount Rushmore super chat. Thank you, big dog. Says, I really hope moving forward we run the darn ball and don't throw it 50 times a game because Russ is back. Can you imagine if we ran the ball more in those close losses? Latavius Murray said they finally stuck to the run, and it worked. Yeah, well, and in this case, it's like, adapt or die. They didn't have any choice but to batten down the hatches, Zach, and hold on for dear life, hoping they could run the ball because that first half, dude, every time Brett Rippon was dropping back, he was getting brutalized, mostly by J.J. Watt. So they said, look, we don't have a choice. We're going to run the ball, and they stayed committed to that, and it paid dividends. Turns out, Zach, you and I, when the Russell trade was done, we thought, you know what, we're going to subscribe to the hashtag Let Russ Cook. That's all he's needed, because if he's produced the level he's produced in a coaching system and with a coaching emphasis and philosophy where it's run the ball first, then Russ, do your thing. Imagine what he could do if it's Russ, do your thing first, then run the ball. We were wrong. Turns out he needs that. And of course, any quarterback, Zach, is going to benefit from a solid running game, rushing attack complement. But in the case of Russell Wilson, that happens to be, turns out, a secret key, not so secret now, key component to the sauce for Russ.
Are those shots being fired that I hear, Chad, from Latavius Murray? They finally stuck to the run and it worked. I mean, since Clint Kubiak took over, it seems like the Broncos are being more balanced on offense. But here's another factor no one's really talking about. And not to take anything away from the offensive line or Latavius Murray, Marlon Mack. You know what kills a rushing offense? Fumbles. And you know who used to play for the Broncos? A fumbler. Ever since Melvin Gordon was finally mercifully released, the Broncos rushing offense has looked a lot better, but it's important to what Latavius Murray says. You can't give up on it, even when you're getting stuffed. You got to keep going through the 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7s to eventually get to the 2nd and 1, 2nd and 2s, or preferably break off a 20-yard run like Latavius Murray did against the Cardinals.
All right, guys, last super chat, and then we're going to say good evening. Wero, again, thank you, brother. He says, outside of the O-line and the coach, what moves would you like the Broncos to make in the offseason or during the draft? I want them to keep the receiver core, Zach. Outside of O-line and coach, I think, first of all, you need to get – if O-line's not part of the question and we're, quote-unquote, using some of the resources this offseason to solve that going into this question, okay. I think you need to upgrade some depth on the D-line. I think you need to upgrade some depth at inside linebacker because Josey Jewell, when he hits that wall, dude, it's going to be hitting it with it's going to be like an old Looney Tunes cartoon when he hits that wall, like Wile E. Coyote. Offensively, wide receiver core, I think they'll keep it for the most part intact one more year because you got KJ is going to be in a contract year. I'm guessing, Zach, that they end up fifth year in Jeudy. Sutton, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. I'll have to look at his contract and what the ramifications would be on the cap if they did move on from him. And then you're getting Timmy P back next season, who hasn't really been able to provide George Payton a return on the faith he showed him by paying him because he got hurt with that ACL. But what am I missing here, Zach?
I mean, the Broncos have so many needs heading into 2023. You can nitpick and say they need a tight end 2 opposite Greg Dulcich, who looks like the real deal. They need an RB3 when you're not bringing back Mike Boone more than likely. But let me throw one out there that no one's talking about, no one's talked about since Russell Wilson arrived, and that's backup quarterback. They cannot go into 2023 with a going on 35-year-old Russell Wilson, and only thing behind him is Brett Rippon and Jarrett Guarantano, who no one's ever heard of. I would prefer not a first-round pick, obviously, not a third-round pick necessarily, but they need to invest in a young quarterback that has some upside that could grow and maybe be some sort of long-term answer. So QB2 is a sneaky need for the Broncos.
And safety, we've learned also Kareem Jackson. They're not going to bring him back this time. This is the swan song for Kareem. Caden Stearns, very exciting player when he's healthy. PJ Locke, I think, is always going to be that guy that you just are happy to have when you need to turn to some safety depth. But they need one more guy at safety they can hang their hat on in the post-Kareem era, shortly after anyway, post-Kareem era. And other than that, I think we've covered it. But Zach, dude, have a Merry Christmas. That's to everybody. We're going to sign off for tonight. We're going to go through our little rundown here, but happy holidays. Those of you who celebrate Christmas, who doesn't? I know some people don't, but you get what I'm saying. Have a Merry Christmas. And we'll be talking to you, of course, later that day. We got to work second half of that day because Broncos got a game. It's going to be dope.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Chad, to you and yours. Everyone out there, hope you're having a great holiday season and a great holiday this weekend. Not to nerd out about football, but I do want to see what Delarian Turner-Yell can do at safety as well. And Rodney Garcia is asking about Albert O as a potential tight end too. That ship has sailed. The Broncos don't see anything with Albert O. I would not be surprised if he's traded or released in the offseason. But that's going to do it for the MHH podcast for this evening. If you're not following us on Twitter, be sure you're doing so at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking as you see, go to huddleuppod.com and get your merch on. I promise you guys good stuff there in the holiday season. And facebook.com/MileHuddlePod. Be sure you're liking that page and following that page. If you haven't, guys and gals, go to Apple Podcasts and leave your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some of that sweet, sweet merch each and every month. But if anything, guys, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Amen. Shout out to the great members of our community who are in the chat tonight, and a special thank you to the Super Chat superstars like Sam Bam, Ross, Don Juan, David, F.A. throwing down, Plum Bob, Wero, and that covers it on Super Chat. And for some reason, it's not showing us our Facebook thing tonight. Something's going on with Facebook reporting, but you know who you are if you're supporting us on Facebook. We love you. We appreciate you. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, and stay safe and stay safe. Stay warm in the Mile High City as well. The temperature is dropping like crazy. Have a great start to your Christmas weekend. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.